There are products that define an era, devices so perfectly balanced, so thoughtfully designed, that even years after they're discontinued, people still hunt them down on eBay, refurbish them with fresh SSDs, and use them as daily drivers. Devices that inspire almost cult-like devotion from the people who owned them. The 2015 MacBook Pro is one of those devices, and here's what makes that remarkable. Apple didn't stop making laptops in 2015. They kept going. New models every year, faster chips, thinner designs, bolder features. By every traditional measure of progress, the MacBooks that came after 2015 should have been better. But something went wrong. Something that took Apple years to admit, years to fix, and years to recover from. And in the middle of all that chaos, the 2015 MacBook Pro quietly became a legend. Not because Apple made it legendary on purpose, but because everything that came after it was so deeply, frustratingly flawed. This is the story of the last great laptop Apple ever made. How it was born, why it was perfect, how Apple abandoned everything that made it special, and what happened when the world finally noticed. Let's go back to 2015. The MacBook Pro lineup at the time was the result of years of careful iteration. Apple had been refining the design since the unibody aluminum era began in 2008, carving the chassis from a single block of aluminum, making it simultaneously strong and lightweight in a way no one else had quite managed. By 2015, the formula had been perfected. The 13-inch and 15-inch MacBook Pros were machines that felt right the moment you picked them up, not just aesthetically, but functionally, practically, in ways that only reveal themselves over months and years of daily use. Start with the keyboard. It had travel, real, satisfying, mechanical depth. You could type for hours without your fingers aching. Writers loved it. Developers swore by it. Even people who claimed they didn't care about keyboards found themselves typing faster, more accurately, more comfortably than on anything else. It wasn't flashy. It just worked. Then there were the ports. 2 USB-A ports, an HDMI port, an SD card slot, MagSafe charging, and a Thunderbolt 2 connection. You didn't need adapters. You didn't need dongles. You plugged things in and they worked. Your monitor, your camera card, your external drive, your phone. No ecosystem of expensive accessories required. And MagSafe. Let's talk about MagSafe for a moment, because if you've ever used it, you know. That satisfying magnetic click when the charger snaps into place. That small LED telling you at a glance whether you're charging or charged. The way it detaches cleanly when someone trips over the cable, saving your laptop from flying off the desk. It sounds like a small thing. It wasn't. It was one of those invisible features that made daily life just a little bit less stressful. The battery lasted all day. The display was sharp and color accurate. The trackpad was the best in the industry, smooth, precise, and deeply responsive. The speakers were punchy for a thin machine. The speakers, on a laptop, actually good. And perhaps most importantly, it was repairable. If your SSD failed, you could replace it. If your battery degraded after a few years, a technician could swap it. If you wanted to keep the machine running for 5, 6, 7 years, there were upgrade paths available. The machine was designed to last, not just to dazzle in a showroom and quietly age out. iFixit, the repair and teardown experts, gave the 2015 MacBook Pro a repairability score of 7 out of 10. That's not perfect, but for a premium thin laptop, it was remarkable. People bought the 2015 MacBook Pro and kept it, not because they couldn't afford an upgrade, but because nothing that came after it seemed worth trading for. That says everything. But then came 2016. Apple took the stage at their annual Mac event and unveiled the new MacBook Pro. From the outside, it looked sleeker, thinner, lighter, cleaner. Apple talked about the Touch Bar, a small OLED strip replacing the traditional function keys, designed to change with context and offer new ways to interact with your Mac. It sounded interesting, maybe even exciting. But as reviewers and real users started spending time with the new machine, a very different story emerged. The ports were gone, every single one. No USB-A, no HDMI, no SD card slot, no MagSafe, just USB-C ports. 4 of them, all Thunderbolt 3, which sounded great until you realized that every single accessory, peripheral, and cable you owned was now incompatible. Apple called it the future. Users called it dongle hell. Overnight, the MacBook Pro buyer experience changed. Now you needed a hub or adapters, or a growing collection of USB-C cables and dongles just to do the things you were doing the day before without thinking. Creative professionals who plugged in cameras, monitors, audio interfaces, and external drives found their workflow suddenly fractured. Journalists and travelers who relied on simplicity found themselves packing more accessories, not fewer, but that wasn't even the worst of it. The keyboard. The 2016 MacBook Pro introduced what Apple called the butterfly keyboard, a revolutionary new mechanism designed to be thinner and more precise than the scissor switches used before. On paper, it sounded like progress. In practice, it became one of the most controversial decisions in Apple's history. The butterfly mechanism was catastrophically fragile. A single grain of dust, not a rock, not a splash of liquid, a grain of dust, could render a key stuck, unresponsive, or endlessly repeating. Users reported entire keys failing within months. Letters stopped registering. Spacebars stuttered. The typing experience, which had been one of the MacBook Pro's greatest strengths, became a source of anxiety and frustration. Repair wasn't straightforward. The keyboard was so tightly integrated into the top case that replacing a single keycap often meant replacing the entire top assembly at enormous cost. Apple eventually launched a keyboard replacement program, quietly acknowledging the issue without ever really owning it publicly. And the Touch Bar, the feature Apple had centered the redesign around, people didn't love it. Professional users found their muscle memory disrupted. Developers who relied on the escape key now had a soft, unpredictable version of it. Touch typists couldn't feel for the function keys anymore. Content creators found context-specific shortcuts more confusing than helpful. A feature Apple clearly believed was the future was, for many, just an expensive distraction. Meanwhile, the price had gone up significantly. The 2016 MacBook Pro cost more than its predecessor for what felt, in meaningful ways, like a step backward. And here's where it gets really interesting. While all of this was unfolding, demand for the 2015 MacBook Pro quietly began to climb. People who had skipped the upgrade started holding on tighter. People who bought the new version and hated it started looking for old ones. Used prices on eBay and resale platforms rose. A laptop that was officially discontinued became more desirable after discontinuation than many laptops ever achieve at launch. Tech communities erupted. YouTube channels devoted entire videos to the question, is the 2015 MacBook Pro still worth buying? The answer, year after year, kept being yes. In 2018, The Verge covered Apple discontinuing the 2015 MacBook Pro entirely, noting that it was the last Mac to feature a traditional keyboard and that the butterfly mechanism that replaced it had already led to widespread reliability issues. iFixit documented the butterfly failures in exhaustive detail. Class action lawsuits were filed. Apple repaired hundreds of thousands of keyboards for free. The butterfly keyboard lasted through 4 generations of MacBook Pro before Apple quietly abandoned it in 2019. The company transitioned to what it called the Magic Keyboard, essentially a refined return to the scissor mechanism the original had used. It was a silent admission that the experiment had failed. The Touch Bar survived a little longer, but not much. By 2021, when Apple introduced the redesigned MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips, the Touch Bar was gone. So was the exclusive reliance on USB-C. Apple brought back HDMI, an SD card slot, and MagSafe. Not USB-A, not yet, but the direction had unmistakably reversed. It was Apple walking back step by step toward what the 2015 MacBook Pro had offered. And the M1 and M2 era MacBooks? They are genuinely excellent machines. The performance is extraordinary, battery life is stunning, and build quality is back where it belongs. Many people consider the 2021 MacBook Pro a return to greatness. But here's the thing worth sitting with. It took Apple 5 years to undo what it spent one event breaking. 5 years of frustrated professionals, broken keyboards, expensive adapters, and declining trust. 5 years of people keeping their 2015 machines alive with fresh batteries and aftermarket SSDs because the replacement simply wasn't good enough. 5 years of a product being loved not for what it was, but for what it was compared to. The 2015 MacBook Pro didn't become legendary because Apple planned it that way. It became legendary because Apple forgot what made it great. And the contrast revealed something important. Great products don't just need powerful specs or thin designs, they need to serve the people using them. They need to understand that real-world workflows, daily habits, and human needs matter more than design awards or dramatic stage moments. They need ports that work, keyboards that survive, and thoughtful decisions that earn trust over time. The 2015 MacBook Pro had all of that, not because it was the most powerful machine Apple ever made, or the thinnest, or the most innovative, but because it was balanced, reliable, honest. And in the years that followed, that honesty became its legacy. Today, if you walk through a coffee shop, a newsroom, a design studio, or a college campus, you might still spot one. A slightly worn aluminum chassis, a glowing Apple logo, a machine that's held up through years of work. And the person using it will often tell you the same thing when you ask why they haven't upgraded. Nothing that came after felt like a step forward. That's not nostalgia, that's a verdict. So if you're someone who still has a 2015 MacBook Pro, take care of it. You might be holding on to one of the last genuinely balanced, genuinely honest machines Apple ever shipped. And if you're shopping for a laptop today, Apple or otherwise, maybe the lesson from the rise and fall of the 2015 MacBook Pro is simpler than it sounds. Don't just ask what's new, ask what's been kept. Because sometimes the most important features aren't the ones on the box. They're the ones you only notice when they're gone. Speaking of things disappearing from laptops, ports have been vanishing for years, and the reasons go much deeper than making devices thinner. Click on the next video to find out more. Trust us, it's not just about design.